What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is your NFL Week 6 betting preview. We'll talk about our favorite sides, totals, teasers, money line underdogs, survivor picks, and of course, crack open our weekly Sunday six-pack of Against the Spread bets with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuck. What's going on? Congratulations on your Ravens fade.
Yeah, I still have my reputation intact. It wasn't looking good for a while. Took a lot of Ravens drops, but the Steelers did what they do at home. They just kept it. I think I said it was going to be 16-13. It was very close to that. Watt and Highsmith had 11 pressures, which is just insane, and Watt was dominant. And then we talked about it. They just made enough throws to Pickens up the sidelines, which is their entire offense. So it was nice to get that. Overall, shitty week for the pod. We finally had one. We'll have them every once in a while, but not just some shitty picks. I had New England got shut out 34-0. Dallas was a horrendous call. So
Arizona couldn't get nothing done either.
I give you a little pass on that one because Burrow looked a lot healthier, which we didn't know going in. I do wish I got the Minnesota over. Was painful.
Yeah, that was shenanigans.
I mean, when do you pick up I never see that flag picked up ever, and then you take off your helmet, and then there was illegal hands to the face, and then Jefferson gets hurt for the last drive. That one should have went over. The Chiefs are punting on 4th and 1 from midfield too because Jefferson was hurt. So that one stung. I felt like I deserved that one. But overall, shitty week. You know, some podcasts listen to it like, we didn't see this coming, and we got good lines. I mean, just a shitty week. So that's what it is. It's all about results. So still having a hell of a year, but when we have good weeks, who cares? Last week was last week. We're on to what I would call an interesting slate, and I have some interesting picks today.
Yeah, as do I. And yeah, I actually love this slate. I think, looking back on last week, I think it was a little bit of a struggle. First week of bye weeks is a little bit tougher sometimes, especially for a pod like this when you're cutting out, 2-3 of the games. But I just think there's a lot of buy low, sell high opportunities this week. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I love the spots I'm playing, but you'll see why I call them interesting. And yeah, the one thing I will say though is that with Dallas, I thought they had a horrible, because we won't talk about them there on Monday night. They had a horrible just game plan on both sides of the ball. I was shocked they couldn't get pressure. I didn't like what they were running on D or offense. I downgraded Dallas a lot. Dak is not using his legs at all. I think he's fearful of his injury, right? And it's kind of like Russell Wilson vibes, where Russ wasn't the same quarterback when he couldn't use his legs. Dak wasn't completely reliant as a runner, but he would, move around in the pocket, maneuver, run when he needed to. Even on the read options, his legs are just that. I think he's afraid. I mean, can you really blame the guy? He had a devastating injury when he was running, and then if you look at some of the results, it's oh wait, because I looked, I said, all right, well they dominated New England, and then I was watching early in the day. I was watching New England get slaughtered by the Saints, and then you start thinking, oh man, then Arizona's getting crushed, and you're like, man, that maybe I shouldn't have written off that Dallas loss at Arizona. So yeah, I thought Dallas was a real contender in the NFC, and they're one of the handful of teams that could still win it. I don't think their ceiling's as high as I thought it was.
Yep, and we talked about this on the pod because I totally agree with you. And I mean, it's a long season; anything could happen. Injuries, improvement, regression, who knows? But the one thing I remember saying is I had two main concerns about Dallas. One was the kicker; he's been fine, and the second was that play calling and just the offense. And it started out, I think, fine. I don't think there was really much of a worry until you got to the Arizona game. And then Dak then we talked I think a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying, I wonder if Dak is going to become a bigger story because he just hasn't been efficient this year. And I think, what did they play a couple weeks ago? I think they beat somebody. But then, after last week, now I think it's fair to kind of question Dak. He's well under 7 yards in attempts, red zone issues. Kellen Moore, maybe he was a little too much.
The play calling's bad too. Like you watch some of the routes that everyone's running, and it's
head
scratching.
Yep, but we won't talk about Dallas because they are Monday night. That's the one game we do not cover. But we do cover Thursday Night Football. So let's get right up into that. And just a reminder for those asking, these episodes always available in full on the Action Network YouTube page on Thursday afternoon. So if you prefer the visuals, be sure to check that out. Like and subscribe. The page really helps us out a lot. Thursday Night Football, Week 6. Denver Broncos. Really, it's the Denver Broncos because they don't have any D. And the Kansas City Chiefs. 10.5 is the spread. The Chiefs are favored. The total is, let me double check because the total's been moving around. The total is 47.5. Could see some weather, but big spread. Total going down. Weather. Kansas City 13-27, 32% against the spread when favored by more than a field goal since early November 2020. That also includes the postseason. Stuck. You're gonna be on the Broncos if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, nothing big. It's Thursday night. I hate it. And yeah, the Denver defense. And by the way, Denver's lost 15 in a row to the Chiefs, which is just insane. The last quarterback to beat Kansas City in a Broncos uniform,
Simeon?
Peyton Manning.
I thought maybe we get like a Simeon when the Chiefs were still bad, but I guess that didn't overlap. They were
Peyton Manning. Mahomes was 20 at I think a freshman at Texas Tech or sophomore.
Okay.
That's the last time it happened. But yeah, the Broncos defense, they're allowing a passer rating of 124.6 through 5 games, 5th highest Super Bowl era. Opponent completion percentage 77.3, highest ever through 5 games. They've allowed 181 points, tied for the second most through 5 games in the Super Bowl era. And they're allowing over 36 points per game. That's the most in the NFL. They're the first team since the 2020 Cowboys to allow 35 plus points per game entering their 6th game or later. 8 teams have played a game with this bad of a defense in the 6th game or later in the last 20 years. They are 6-2 against the spread. Look, and I didn't even mention the run defense issues. Like, they can't stop the run either, and they have some injuries up front. It's just a bad defense. It's a bad scheme defense. The personnel isn't great. That said, I think that this line is a bit too high. I mean, I'm closer to 9, and then you throw in, like, the weather, which is going to adversely impact the Chiefs more so than the Broncos. And the Chiefs offense is still they're still figuring some things out, even though they're on a historic pace for 3rd and longs. I mean, the conversion rate is the highest in NFL history if the season ended today. And like the 3rd place team and the 5th place team in the rankings were the Chiefs of the last couple of years. But their offense isn't as good as it's been. And Mahomes has gotten away with a couple turnover-worthy throws. Kelsey might be a little banged up or limited here. There's some injuries on the defensive side of the ball for Kansas City. And you can still run on the Chiefs. And I think that's what the Broncos are going to do here. They are going to just try to grind this game down. Wilson's not going to be under just constant duress against the Chiefs like he was against the Jets. I think they're going to bring in like a lot of max protect. You get Javonte Williams back this week, which makes a game plan more conducive to, hey, let's just run at Kansas City, kind of shorten this game. Maybe Dulcich plays as well. He was just designated off IR. So I think this spread is too high, and we've seen the Chiefs flop as double-digit favorites, really bigger over a touchdown consistently. Defense is a little better this year, but they still know how to run the clock down, like we saw against the Jets, better than any team in the NFL. So yeah, I think that this is a good buy low spot on the Broncos, who I believe haven't covered a game all year. And now that you're getting over 10, a divisional dog catching double digits in weather, very enticing for what it's worth. Double-digit dogs this early in the season, so week 6 or earlier, 51-30-4 against the spread over the past 20 years. So I think Denver's the play. It's scary with Mahomes, and even if they just hand it off a lot, they could still carve up this Denver D. But I think the spread's a little too high, so I'll have a small play on the Broncos.
Yeah, that's the right side. I'm going to stay away. don't enjoy betting Thursday night football. I can't. Maybe it's because it's like the one day when I'm watching football where I'm really not sweating anything. But yeah, don't love Thursday night football. Weird things happen, as we saw last week with the Bears just looking like a juggernaut on offense. And but I do agree. I think the Broncos have the play here, and there's going to be quite a few plays like this week where it's just what do you always like to say? Catch the falling knife. Yep. This is one of them. I totally agree with the side. And I'll be rooting for you. Okay. Speaking of Thursday night, remember that you can find me, Sean Kerner, and lots of other action personalities and experts on the Action Network Discord server, especially during Thursday night football. Great place to get prop bets directly from Sean and I. Just to chat if you want. Sweating big games, looking a live bet. It's totally free. So to join, all you need is an invitation link and the Discord app. So if you're interested, check out the link in the episode description. I was in there chopping it up a little bit last Thursday, so that was fun. So shout out to everybody on the Discord. And yeah, be sure to check out the link if you want to get in there. But now it is time for the week number 6 Sunday six pack.
Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday six-pack.
All right, stuck. Rough week. 21-18 me. 2 points for the first pick, 1 for the third, 1 for the total, another if you sweep. You're up first this week. Where are you going?
All right, for my first pick of the week 6 Sunday six-pack, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals -2.5. I like this up to 3, but I prefer a -2.5, which I would buy up to -120 here. I saw what I needed to see last week from Joe Burrow, and there's two factors here. One, coming into the season, just like the past 2 seasons, we've seen Burrow miss time in the preseason, and we know that it takes him some time to get his timing right, to get in the flow of the offense, and and I've been waiting to see that happen. That I saw that last week. Number 2, he's had an injury that has completely limited him as a passer. Not only could he not make a lot of throws, he couldn't move around in the pocket, and then he wasn't going through his progressions because he knew that he couldn't move in the pocket, so he was just looking at someone, looking somewhere else, throwing it, and then he couldn't even plant. Well, last week, that all changed. Couple throws to the outside when he has to kind of open up that he kind of left a little bit short. But other than that, I mean, if you look at all the touchdowns last week, it was him evading pressure. He was moving around. He was scrambling. He was going through his progressions. The timing looked right. And he looked like the old Joe Burrow. And now you get another week. So I think that he's only going to keep progressing, getting that timing down. Calf gets healthier. He gets more confidence. He's getting more flow into the offense, which I thought was actually just better overall. Just feed chases. As he said, I'm always fucking open. The play action I thought was better. And but I still think you're getting a discount on this Bengals team because of how they started, because of how Burrow has looked. You're getting them under a field goal at home against Seattle. I'm sorry, I'm not buying into the Seahawks. I wasn't coming into the season. And, wins over the Panthers and Giants aren't going to change that. I still think there's holes on this defense. They're not going to get pressure on Burrow either. Their pressure numbers are inflated because the Giants just didn't block anybody. This isn't a defense that gets a ton of pressure. So Burrow is going to be able to operate, and he looked more mobile last week. So I think you're getting Cincy cheap here. You also might get T. Higgins back, which would help. Awuzie might return. But I've been impressed with some of the other the defensive backs on Cincinnati. DJ Turner looks like he could be a player. Dax Hill is playing well. The other safety, what's his name? Nick Scott.
Nick Scott.
He's not playing well. He's definitely a liability back there. He's missing a ton of tackles. That's why they brought in like Jordan Battle at times to replace him as a more sure tackler. he's still a liability on the back end. But this defensive line should have an advantage over the Seahawks offensive line. And ultimately, I just trust the Bengals at home against the Seahawks. Better quarterback, home field advantage, better defensive line. And Burrow's not going to be under pressure here. And I think Seattle's just overvalued after doing what? I mean, they beat two of the worst teams in the NFL. Yeah, they beat the Lions. Lions are beat up. Seahawks got a pick six and then won in overtime. I just think I'm ready to sell the Seattle team. Ready to buy Cincinnati for the time being. So I think they're a bit undervalued. Primarily because I saw what I needed to see from Burrow. And I think it's only going to be better this week. And he could be adding a weapon in T. Higgins back into the mix. So I like the Bengals here at under a field goal in a desperation spot to get back to 500.
Yeah, it's Bengals or nothing here. I'm surprised the line actually moved off to 3. I guess some money's coming in on Seattle. I'm not down on Seattle or anything. I think Seattle's pretty solid. But I do agree. I think that the market is still probably factoring in the hurt Bengals offense a little too much because it was night and day. I mean, they put up 6 points combined in their first 2 road games. You know, that's just obviously something was wrong there, and it was.
Yeah, I mean, you could watch Burrow. He couldn't plant.
Yeah.
He couldn't move. So he couldn't
he
get through his progressions. And on top of all of that, couldn't scramble. On top of all of that, just like the past 2 seasons, his timing was just off, and it takes him a couple weeks. Just like last year, you know, they lost to Cooper Rush. They lost to some bad quarterbacks, and then they went on this huge run starting right around this time. So I think there's 2 things working in the Bengals' favor here: is that Burrow looked healthier, and he's also getting just his natural timing down after missing time, just as he has the past 2 seasons. So yeah, I think that this line should be, you know, closer to 4.5.
Yeah, Cincinnati against the spread with Joe Burrow. I mean, you know, you take out, like, even with these, you know, couple of slip-ups, I mean, when the opponent is allowing more than 19 points a game, Burrow's 18-3-1 against the spread. So against, like, any normal defense, I mean, it's just been almost an automatic, and if he's healthy,
basically outside the division. Yeah. Burrow's 17-4 straight up outside of the division, 17-3-1 against the spread in those games, and I basically just need him to win this game. I'll trust the Bengals to get it done.
Before we move on, just a quick question. Just want to know if you had any thoughts. I think the one concern about the Bengals for me is, why do they keep giving up explosive runs? Like, they're dead last in explosive rush rate on defense. Any idea? Is it the safeties? Is it the secondary being less experienced? Just missed tackles.
Missed tackles. You know, like, I think Nick Scott has, like, I think he leads the NFL in missed tackles, and they've led to a number of explosive runs. Because if you take out, Arizona had I think 2 or 3 big explosive runs last week. If you take them out, they did nothing on the ground. But it's missed tackles, and which is one of the things that I've liked about DJ Turner. Like, when he came in, he's undersized, but he was actually, like, coming in and giving up his body. But Scott has missed so many tackles on the back end, so I don't think it's he had, like, you might have to play Baltimore. He's definitely going to be a liability, so that might happen a couple times a game. But that is something that I looked into, and a lot of it was just the result of missed tackles, and a lot of those were Nick Scott, who was definitely a question coming into the year.
Yeah, because as I'm watching it too, I'm like, initially I was went to the All-22, and I was trying to see if maybe they're, you know, dropping the secondary further back, because I know they're, you know, they lost safeties coming into the year, and it's a little less experience. But yeah, mostly I just saw teams ripping off big runs, and you're right, it's just straight up missed tackles, which are one of those things that tends to regress to the mean as the year progresses.
By the way, someone who could have a really big impact on this game that doesn't get talked about enough. We talk about, you know, Watt and Parsons, even Crosby, but Trey Hendrickson is playing out of his mind right now. He is an absolute menace, and he deserves to be in that conversation for, you know, the top edge rushers in the NFL, and he just doesn't get that credit. He has 6 sacks on the year. Should have 9. He had 3 called back because of penalties on, you know, like illegal contact stuff that had nothing to do with his sacks. So he should have 9 sacks so far this season. He's playing out of his mind, and he could give that Seattle offensive line a load of trouble.
All right. For my first pick, the second overall of the Week 6 Sunday 6-pack, gotta go with the best team in football right now, obviously, the New England Patriots, +3 at the Las Vegas Raiders. I joke, obviously, but this is, I think, a classic buy low, sell high, and it doesn't get much lower than the Patriots, coming off 2 games where they got beat by 30+. I believe Belichick's 2 worst losses now in his career.
72-3 combined the last 2 games.
Right. So I think you're going to get, obviously, a great effort from New England, and I think New England is still the better team here. And I know it sounds crazy, because of after what we've seen the last couple of weeks, but you look at this New England team, and okay, they come into the air, they play tough against Philly, they play tough against Miami, and then they beat the Jets in a game where no one had any offense. But and then the injuries start piling up. Mac Jones starts throwing pick sixes, which I think was a big issue, but that's not going to happen every week. You have a coaching advantage here. The spot is amazing. Dogs off shutouts, 44-26 against the spread, 63% since 2005. Road dogs off a loss of 20 or more, 50-26, 66% against the spread over the last 5 years. Belichick off a double-digit loss, 25-9-1 against the spread, 74%, covering by 5.4 points a game, including 9-6-1, 60% without Brady, and 4-2-1, 67% with Mac Jones specifically. You look at the defenses New England's faced. Philly, great defense, very highly talented front. Jets, great defense, talent all over the place. Dallas, great defense, talent all over the place. New Orleans, another defense that's been great. They hardly ever give up 20 unless Derek Carr is just handing the other team the ball in plus territory. And then even Miami, and it's probably a little bit inflated because they played the Giants, because Miami's not a good defense. But Miami's up to 3rd in pressure rate. It's a defense that I think this week, the weakness of one of the weaknesses of the Patriots is their O-line. So it's been a tough slate for New England. But now you get the Raiders. And the Raiders they've been one of the worst defenses in the league for 2 decades. I think the last time they finished above average in points allowed was 0-2, I want to say, or 0-3, somewhere in the early 2000s. They're 24th in DVOA. They're 30th in pressure rate, which is big. And like I said, Mac Jones is not going to keep throwing pick sixes every single week. Interceptions are highly volatile. They only happen on average about 2.5% of pass attempts, and a pick six is even much more rare than that. So you look at this Patriots team. Well, what's been going on with them, especially in these all year, really horrible turnover luck. 10 giveaways, just 2 takeaways. No takeaways since week 2. Now you're playing the Raiders, and granted, turnovers are volatile, but I think that works in the Patriots' favor more here because, like I said, Mac Jones is going to be, he's not going to take as many chances probably, but that doesn't matter in a defense who you can beat through the air or on the ground like the Raiders. And this Raider team, I mean, if there is a team that's going to, switch around your turnover luck, this Raider team, you have Garoppolo with 7 picks in 4 starts. For Garoppolo, you have, just a Raider defense that before they played Jordan Love, just almost allergic to takeaways. So, yeah, I think this kind of switches around. New England's still the better team. Even after getting blown out 72-3 over the last 2 weeks, New England is still the better team in DVOA by 6% over the Raiders. After all that, New England still, they do have some injuries, but they still have enough players on defense, I think, to give Garoppolo issues. There's a lot of familiarity here, which I think works in the underdog's favor. They know Patrick Graham, they know Jimmy Garoppolo, to name a few. So obviously the head coach of the Raiders, Josh McDaniels, who, by the way, has been just losing the Raiders like tangible win probability, like week in and week out. I mean, you talk about the Pittsburgh game, not going for the touchdown, kicking the field goal. You talk about last week when what did they do? They kick again instead of trying to end the game and going for it. I mean, it's just week in, week out. This guy is losing this team games. Whereas the Patriots' issue is more they're just behind the 8 ball. Their offense is not very good. It's been neglected. But in a matchup like this against a bad defense, in a bounce back spot, give me the disgusting. I mean, is this count as a falling knife? I mean, I know it's not like a plus 14, but like it is a 72 to So give me I'll catch the New England falling knife.
Yeah, that's the theme of this episode. And yeah, when a lot of these trends that we mention, it's just a way to kind of contextualize buying low and selling high. Another one to throw out there: teams who lost by 20 plus points or more in their previous game against teams coming off a night game. And by the way, short week here are. Those teams coming off a night game playing against a team that lost by 20 plus the previous game, 64, 103, and 5 against the spread since 1990, 38%. Also applies to the 49ers for what it's worth. We'll talk about that game later. This is the spot. It is the play. But I'm really concerned about the Patriots. I mean, do these Belichick spots even apply anymore? Like, number one, the special teams are a disaster.
Horrible.
A disaster, which is just a reflection on coaching. The offense is, it might be beyond repair. I mean, the offensive line is bad. They can't pass protect. The play calling's bad. The receivers are horrendous. There's no separation. The route running is terrible. I don't know what Troy Brown is doing. Like, they just have all these like legacy Patriots guys on the staff. I don't like.
Troy Brown he got to be a bad wide receivers coach, right? He's just got to be.
Yeah,
they haven't ever had good wide receivers since like the days of Randy Moss.
Well, and then they got rid of Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers revenge.
And he's balling. He's actually cutting into
and he was
Adams'
the guy that Mac Jones had like chemistry with
because he's good. Yes.
And Juju Smith-Schuster he's probably not even going to play this week, but
disaster.
He's like running the laziest routes. Devontae Parker doesn't get any separation anymore. He's a dinosaur. But then the play calling has been great. They can't even run the ball. Stevenson's under 3 yards per carry. He's over 5 last year. And then the defense, you lose Gonzalez, you lose Judon. I don't really think it's a huge deal in the secondary usually when the Patriots lose guys, but now they're not getting pressure. They're like blitzing a ton. Josh Uche is invisible. And then I'm just afraid as the locker room gone with Mac Jones. I mean, he threw that pick 6. There's guys that even their captains were throwing him under the bus in the post, in the interviews after the game. David Andrews, Hunter Henry were like, I mean, you said you weren't going to make turnovers anymore. Like they're putting their hands up in the air. So it's a bad situation. And then the funny thing is, everyone just blamed Patricia last year, but these problems were persistent in 2022 as well. And Jones just now looks like he looked decent early in the year. He looks broken. He looks like he has no feel. He has happy feet. He's not seeing anything. The receivers are bad. Now, having said that, you're going to go up against they've played a brutal schedule of defense. You're going to have a much easier defense here. And the Raiders, all they want to do, their entire scheme, because they know that they don't have, Graham knows, their defensive coordinator knows that they don't have any talent besides Crosby. So all they do is they just take away the explosive play. That's it. You have safeties way deep, playing off, and they just don't give up explosive plays. They give up the fewest passing explosive plays this season of any team. So, but that doesn't matter against the Patriots. Patriots have no explosiveness in their passing attack. So they can methodically, that's what they're going to have to do. Belichick early in the week said, the reporter asked him, what are you going to do about this offense? He said, we have to start over and completely reset. So what I think that means is they're going to come out here, just run the ball a ton, simple passes, easy concepts for Jones, rely on Stevenson, rely on their defense, try to turn Garoppolo over, and you should get a focused effort here. If you don't, I mean, this team's might not win another game, but it's bad. But you should be able to run. You should be able to just get some easy route concepts against this soft D. I also would look at the under here because the Raiders just don't give up explosive plays. I think the Patriots defense will show up. And the Patriots, I think, are just going to play really conservative, kids' gloves with Mac Jones, give it to Stevenson a lot. But, yeah, this is the spot with the Patriots.
And real quick for those wondering, it's very rare that a team scores 3 or fewer points in back-to-back games. It's only happened 8 times over the past 2 decades. In the next game, they are 7-1 against the spread. If you go up to 6 points or fewer in each of the last 2 games, then you're looking at 23-11, 68% against the spread, covering by 3.8 points a game. So, yeah, big spot play, but also I do think, as you pointed out, I mean, Dallas and New Orleans, those two defenses, just very good. So I do think the Patriots offense will go back to just looking underwhelming and not completely broken this week. But where are you going next?
All right, speaking of catching a falling knife, for my second pick and third overall, the Week 6 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Carolina Panthers plus 13.5 against the high-powered Miami Dolphins. I'm going to catch the falling knife. I think this is the bottom of the market on the Panthers, who haven't won a game yet. This is the time of the year where you're going to get value in these teams. I mean, this is the Panthers team. I mean, the Dolphins were just laying 13 to the Giants, who were missing their entire team, their entire offensive line, their running back. Now you're getting 13 back. By the way, it doesn't matter for this. I'm waiting to see if a 14 pops. Last week, it wasn't as bad as the final score looked. The Panthers turned it over 3 times. Bryce Young maybe got some confidence late in the game, but the Panthers were playing without 3 starters in the secondary. I mean, the guys they had out in the secondary last week was a joke. The Horn was out. Xavier Woods was out. Dante Jackson was out. Dante Jackson, full participant today. He will play this week, which is big. You got guys like Deshaun Jameson out there starting on the outside at corner. Xavier Woods is progressing better. I don't know if he'll play this week. But the pass defense has been better than the run defense. They're not going to be crazy blitzing Tua like the Giants, which is dumb. The run defense has been really weak, worse than the NFL. And there's some injuries on the offensive line. It's not a pretty situation for a winless team. I'm not going to sit here and tell you good things about the Panthers. I will say that, and the run D's been bad. At least A-Chain won't play for the Dolphins. He's out. He's just so explosive. The Dolphins should still get their points here. But here's the thing. Laying this number, it's not a great spot. There's going to be some wind, too. And that will hurt Miami much more than it will Carolina, who I think will probably try to make this, just grind this game down. They're going to run the ball a lot. You can run on Miami. These two teams are tied for the second worst defensive success rate in the league. Miami is not a good defense. So laying this type of number is just difficult to cover. And I think that they're at the peak of their market value. They covered again last week. The Panthers are winless. No one wants to back them. And now you're getting close to 2 touchdowns. This is the time to try and catch the falling knife. For what it's worth, teams, winless road dogs, catching more than 10 in game 6 or later of the season, 26-8 against the spread over the past 20 years. That's 76.5%. Also, game 6 or later, teams averaging 35 points per game or more, facing a team averaging less than 20, are 20, 38, and 4 against the spread over the past 20 years. So this just shows you how many times that happened, where this team's averaging over 35, teams averaging under 20. Saying, who wants to back this dog? Well, usually this is when you get value and the market gets a little inflated. And, offenses are going to come back down to earth. You're going to have adjustments. Carolina has a really good defensive coordinator. So, yeah, I think this is just the time to buy it. And teams that are, speaking to this overvalued, selling high, from week 5 on, teams who are covering by 5 points per game on average, and that's the Bills and the Dolphins, facing a team with a 250 win percentage or less, they're 65, 109, and 5 against the spread. Again, shows you all these spots, no one wants to back the dog here, and that's why you're getting a little extra value. So this number is just too high for a Miami team in a bad spot with weather. Philly on deck, Carolina desperate, winless. I think that they can do enough either early or late if needed to get in the back door to cover this number. I think it's a bit inflated. This is the time we finally buy Carolina for the first time on this podcast this season.
Yeah, and you know how low I am on Carolina, and I'm very tempted. I think I really do love the Panthers this week. I think one thing going a little underrated is that this Dolphin offense, obviously great coach, and that does worry me, the coaching mismatch between Reich and McDaniel. But this Dolphin offense, as much of a juggernaut as it's been, Achane is a massive loss. Yeah, he's touched the ball 47 times this year.
He just goes for 30 yards every time he touches it.
He's averaging 11.2 yards a touch with 7 touchdowns on 47 touches. This Dolphins offense is great without him, but it's like otherworldly with him. But like you're knocking it down a peg here, so that's kind of working. Like his success rate on runs is 71%. Now Raheem Mostert averaging a very solid just under 5.5 yards per carry. His success rate's 53%. So like think about how good Achane has been to be with a success rate 18% higher than a guy who's averaging well over 5 yards a carry. I mean, it's just absurd. So,
and that's look. And another thing to factor in here is, and look, that's the weakness of the Carolina defense. They're like ranked. You look at EPA or adjusted. You're like 11th or 12th in pass D, even with the injuries. But their run D is like dead last. And in games like this, something else you have to consider when like the market is, this doesn't have to do with selling high, but in these spots where you're playing, these really good teams and really good offenses in particular are facing inferior teams, especially with the big game on deck. You see this with the Chiefs a lot too. There's no reason to show a ton, right? There's no reason to show your plays, show your different types of motion, right? You have the Eagles next week. The more you put your offense on tape, like the more ammo teams have to come up with counters to your offense. So you could see the Dolphins just, all right, let's just run the ball, in the second half once they get up, 14, 17 points. And, then that leaves the back door wide open. There's also wind here. So you could just see the Dolphins just take a much more conservative game plan here, because when you are playing a much inferior opponent, there's no reason to reveal everything in your playbook and throw everything out there when you're going to win regardless.
Yeah, totally agree. I think this is, I said I wouldn't bet the Panthers. I still haven't all year, but if I, and I may very well, it would be, I think this is the week. It just, anytime you have teams that are winless too, against the spread straight up, starting in week 6, you just back them every week. Like you're going to have a winner. Like they almost always cover in the, this week, next week. Like you don't go too much further than week 6 or 7 like that. So totally agree. Panthers other side. For my second pick, the 4th overall of the week, number 6 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings -2.5 at the Chicago Bears. I think this is another spot where, first of all, I think the Bears it doesn't get much higher than Justin Fields throwing for over 600 yards and 8 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. You have Fields not leading the NFL in touchdown rate. So selling this Bears team with a rare Vikings play as a favorite, but it's kind of a buy low on Minnesota in the sense that they're 1-4 and they just lost Justin Jefferson. So everyone's down on them. The public, more bets and money coming in on the Bears here. Not even getting the 3 at the 2.5. But I look at this Minnesota team, and obviously just losing Justin Jefferson's massive, massive loss. But if there's ever a team, there's 2 teams that it wouldn't matter as much against. It's Chicago and Denver. And Chicago is the Vikings' opponent here, 31st in both DVOA and EPA against the pass, and 26th in pressure rate. So they're not getting pressure, not playing great pass defense. This is a bad defense. But Minnesota can also go run heavier in this spot. Their offensive line is actually blocking well against the run. They have the best PFF run blocking grade. And I think their run game is going to start to improve a little bit because they're working in Cam Akers more. And, small sample, but Akers, Madison, his success rate, 48%. Akers, in the time he's been at Minnesota, and, McVay switched his scheme up in LA, and O'Connell is still kind of running the old scheme. So that's why they sent Akers over here. Akers has a 60% success rate already, 12% higher than Madison. You started to see his snaps go up last week. The first week they kind of worked him in. Last week it was about, once every other, third drive. This week, I think it could be closer to 50-50. Chicago's also bad in run defense. And then you have the turnover luck. Minnesota, 12 turnovers, 31st, and they only have 3 takeaways. That's 29th. So I think that'll even out. The Bears, Justin Fields, I know he has his 8 touchdowns against 2 bad defenses over the last couple of weeks, but if there's anyone that's going to help your turnover luck, I think the Bears are at or near the top of the list. They have multiple turnovers in every game until that Thursday game where they just caught Washington sleeping for a half. It happened, especially on Thursday night. So I like this Minnesota team. I think they're a better team. I think this should be at least a field goal. Getting under a field goal here. So selling this Bear team high for a Minnesota team that I still think is much better, even though, we came in the year wanting to fade them too. But I think we'll still be able to throw in this specific matchup.
Yeah, look, neither team might not be able to throw much because of the weather. This is a sneaky under that I like. It's crossed over 45 down to 44.5. But I swore off. These two defenses are horrendous. Bears have gone over every game this year. But divisional game outdoors with weather and a lot of wind. And there's no Jefferson, who I have worth like 1.5 points to the spread. This could be more of a running game. I think the Vikings would have more success in that case because the Bears, Herbert is out. Johnson has a concussion. I mean, they don't have any running backs. So the other thing is that I feel like Fields will get really confused in this matchup because this is when I assume Flores is going to bring a ton of blitzes. And like this is how you don't have any running backs. This is what I would do. There's weather too. You don't have to even worry as much about the passing, but you basically just have to cover DJ Moore. Put a safety over top. Their entire offense has been throwing it to DJ Moore on the sidelines, and he's making explosive plays. Put a safety over top DJ Moore. You don't really have to worry about the running game as much. Spy Fields and blitz. And for his career, Fields has really struggled against the blitz. 9 big-time throws, 15 turnover-worthy plays. The Minnesota defense has been really bad, but with this weather and they've faced some good offenses in fairness, but for what it's worth, when two teams allow 24 points per game or more, the under's 54 and 32 the last 3 seasons, 63%. It also applies to Miami, Carolina. But yeah, rain and wind, divisional game. Bears could get some reinforcements in the secondary, but I think this, as to your point, comes down to a running game, and I'd favor Minnesota. So under a field goal, even with the Bears having extra rest, I think Minnesota's the side, so I agree with you there. For my third pick in the 6th overall, the Week 6 Sunday 6-pack, we're going to attempt to catch another falling knife. I'm going with the New York Giants plus 14 at the Buffalo Bills. This is horrendous. I hate it, but I think this is the time to buy the Giants, who haven't covered all year. By the way, for what it's worth, teams that have yet to cover in Game 6 or beyond as an underdog, 68% against the spread historically, 5-1 as a double-digit underdog. They won 3 of those 6 outright. Just shocking results if you go back and look and be like, wait, how did that team win? And speaking of the buying low, double-digit dogs in back-to-back games, since the Giants were catching 13 at Miami last week, 68, 42, and 3 against the spread the last 20 years in the second leg. When they don't cover the first leg, as the Giants didn't do, 46, 23, and 1 against the spread. So that speaks to, hey, we have a bad team catching double digits. They didn't cover. So everyone who either cashed on the favorite is going to go do it again, or whoever backed the dog, they don't want any part of that stinky dog again. And then you're going to get, look, the Giants were catching 13 at Miami. Now they're catching 14 in Buffalo. Buffalo's a couple points better than Miami. They were just favored by a field goal at home. That's the inflation here. I know there's quarterback uncertainty. From what I've heard, Daniel Jones is going to play. He didn't practice today, but it was just soreness. And you're going to get Saquon Barkley back. And I know Waller didn't practice. He might be out with a groin. Thomas is out, likely. There's other injuries on the offensive line. But there's other things. Not only are they catching 14 at the Bills, and the Bills were power rated a couple points higher than the Dolphins. The Bills are coming back from overseas, and they lost 3 all-pro caliber defensive starters. Jaquan Jones was playing out of his mind. I think he leads all defensive tackles in pass block win rate. You lost an all-pro corner, and then an all-pro linebacker who is so important to everything that you do. There's other injuries on the defense, too. So, and now we're getting 2 touchdowns, which is such a hard number to cover in the NFL. And there's another, the other factor here is the Dable factor. What I think he should do, they should, they have a 10% higher success rate with 12 personnel. I think that they should just bring in max, 2 tight ends, and then you're just going to, you need to run Barkley. They don't have any running game, so Barkley at least will provide a spark there. And then it'll set up your play action some more. But they just got to line up and run. And you can run on Buffalo. Buffalo's run defense has been really bad. Now they're out a couple starters. They're going to have to play even probably softer on the back end, a lot more zone. And look, Verusso's hurt too. Von Miller, he came back to play overseas, but he was not healthy last week. This defense is just not the same. So I think this is the time to buy the Giants. Dable's so familiar with everything that this Bills team wants to do on both sides of the ball. And look, just to show you how hard it is to cover these numbers, the Giants lost by 18 at San Francisco, and they had a bunch of starters out. We see what San Francisco is doing to everyone. They were outgained by like 400 yards. Last week they were outgained by 300 yards. They lost by 16. They had chances to cover both games, and they were absolutely destroyed. It's just very difficult to cover, and it's just a tough spot for the Bills coming back from London, and the Giants, just everyone has written them off. It's Dable's going up against his old team. I think that you're going to have some changes. Like, they're even talking about bringing in some new offensive linemen, because last week they basically if you look at the Giants realistically, they started 5 guards last week. They have 5 guards. Like, Schmidt should probably be a guard. Neal should be a guard, right? Every one of them, they just have 5 guards out there. So what should you do? They just bring 2 tight ends, run it a lot, simple play action. And Dable knows how to attack this team. He knows the Bills' offense too. So I think this line's just too high. It could be Tyrod Taylor. Whatever. I don't care. The offense will run the same. It's a slight downgrade. But Saquon Barkley being back is huge, because you just need someone to run it forward, and then he could break a couple runs. So yeah, it's ugly. But I think this line is just a tad inflated, and it's a decent spot. Dable familiarity. I expect some changes, some widespread changes about how the Giants are running this offense, whether it's like with Justin Pugh is going to come up and play. They're going to sign a tackle. Like, they might sign Lyle Collins, bring 2 tight ends in and play. You're going to see some changes here. And then Barkley, you need Barkley. Like, the play action, they haven't even used play action as much this year. And they haven't been able to run the ball at all. And then because of that, because you can't run the ball at all, you can spy Jones or Taylor, and they can't run the ball. So it just the whole offense changes with Barkley in there. So 2 touchdowns, I can't pass it up.
Yeah, I think they need Pugh, Deal, Snee. Like, yeah, they need the whole O-line from like a decade ago, because it's been ugly. I will say this, like, it's the right side. I do like. And this is crazy because I usually hate them, but I do like the Panthers more. I don't really know where to go with the Giants. I would like the Giants a little more if the Bills were not coming off a loss, because now you're gonna get like, okay, we gotta right the ship. But I do agree. I mean, the Bills are injured, and it's these spots have just kind of been money without fail lately. But I'll close it out with my third and final pick of the Week 6 Sunday 6-pack. Going with the Lions -3 against the Tampa Bay Bucs.
Wait, that's not ugly enough.
It's not ugly, but it's kind of ugly because usually we'd be selling the Lions, right? I mean, they're coming off all these impressive wins. They're blowing people out. But I want to sell the Bucs even more. And the difference is, I even though we're going to probably be selling the Lions very soon, the Lions are legit. But none of the Bucs wins check out. Like, they opened the year. They beat the Vikings by 3 in a game we were on. They were on the Bucs in that one. They beat the Vikings because the Vikings can't hold on to the ball. They turn it over 3 times, and they win by 3. The next week, they're playing the Bears when Justin Fields still didn't know how to play quarterback, still confused and not making good decisions. The Bears had a chance to tie or go ahead, and before one of the worst play calls of all time, a second straight screen backed up on your own goal line. And, okay, Tampa Bay gets a 10-point win. Fine. And then they wallop the Saints in another game. We were on the Bucs because Derek Carr decides, like, on Saturday that he wants to play. After I don't think he practiced much all week. The Saints are obviously not ready to incorporate him back into the offense. And they laid an egg and gave the Bucs a bunch of short fields. I mean, at one point, I think they got a stop in the red zone and then turned it right back over to the Bucs at like the 1-yard line. It's just none of the Bucs wins check out. The one legit team they faced was the Eagles, and it was a 25-11 win. And this is not even like a great Eagles team. This is like an Eagles team still like warming up. Baker made, and then another thing, Lions are going to blitz. Not going to blitz. They're blitzing second lowest rate, just 18% of the time. But they're still 8th in pressure rate. And Baker Mayfield, this year, blitzing him has not worked out. 9.9 yards an attempt. Essentially 10 yards an attempt when blitzed.
I've said this for years. His numbers for his career are better when blitzed than not.
Right.
And it's a huge misconception. The key to beating Baker is pressure without blitzing, and then you have more guys in the secondary, and he gets flustered, and then will inevitably throw it to one of them and not see him once or twice in the game. And
this is exactly what I'm looking for, because another team that's just benefiting from ridiculous turnover luck is this Buccaneer team. Like I already broke it down. So the Lions getting pressure. They haven't played the Giants yet, so their numbers shouldn't be too inflated. And also, another area for aggression, Detroit has the highest drop rate in the league. So their offense could be even better. They're dropping nearly 8% of Goff's passes. Bucs have the 8th lowest drop rate at just over 3%. So I think that is going to regress. This Detroit team, 3rd in overall DVOA on defense, 8th against the pass, 4th against the run. And Tampa Bay's been really good against the pass. They haven't been good against the run. They have the 2nd worst PFF run defense grade. They have they're outside the top 20 in DVOA. And we know what this Lion team could do on the ground already. Now you're getting Amon-Ra St. Brown back, so I think that'll help the passing game. Gibbs looks like he'll still be out. But you have Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams.
Is he definitely in?
He practiced today, so he should be.
How about Mike Evans?
Mike Evans, there's questions. I didn't see a practice report for that, so I can't confirm. Obviously, that would be even better. I'd like it even more. But yeah, I think Detroit. I think this is another spot where Detroit, runs up the score and blows them out. And I think people are buying in a little too much of this Bucs team that played nobody, got no wins against anyone good, and is coming off a bye. And by the way, another spot with this. So coming off a bye. Usually, it is worth a little bit. Obviously, more rest is better. But this is a spot where, they've been very overrated though. Home when the because you're usually going to be in a better spot when you're the superior team coming up. Short rest or long rest tends to better benefit the favorite, superior team with either more time to prepare or just better talent. But like these home dogs off a bye, that's when they've been inflated. They're just 26-43-1 against the spread when it's a home dog by under a touchdown. Just 38% over the last 2 decades. So give me Detroit to keep it rolling at least one more week against this overrated Bucs team that we all expected to finish either really in last place. And nothing has really changed for me with this Bucs team. So give me Detroit.
I don't have a feel here. You're on your own here. Because the Lions' resume doesn't really check out either. Like, yeah, they were lucky to beat the Chiefs the first game of the year. And then who have they beat since? I mean, it's been
teams like special. The Bucs, the Panthers.
I know. I'm saying I'm agreeing with you on both. So I think the spreads. I'm saying both teams. This is like a data point for me because I make it right around where it is. Although Mike Evans didn't practice today. I just saw that. So. That's
not good coming off the bye either.
No, that definitely would help your case. So I don't hate it, especially because all Jared Goff does is cover games.
True. I didn't even want to bring that up because I don't know what that means exactly. Yeah, but you're right.
But I don't have a strong feel here, but I will root you in. So yeah, that'll at least we have like a comp. At least we have the Bengals and Lions, so we have like semi-confident teams in our 6-pack because the rest are, oh boy,
yeah.
Catch that.
I mean, hey, the Vikings haven't played a non-one possession game yet, so as long as they win, we should at least get the cover here under a field goal. But hey, we've seen the Vikings do Chargery things. Okay, so that's gonna do it for the 6-pack. To recap, Stuck has the Bengals -2.5, the Panthers +13.5, the Giants +14. I have the Pats +3, the Vikings -2.5, and the Lions -3. All right, this week's Coach's Pep Talk comes to us from the 2003 film Old School, one of my favorite movies, and we're going to dedicate it to all of the falling knife teams that we're trying to catch this week. So the Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants, and the New England Patriots. Keep your composure, guys.
Come on, all right, everybody. Well, that's what I'm talking about, guys. We've made a great effort so far. Let's just keep it up.
That's right! We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure. We've come too far. There's too much to lose. We've got to keep our composure.
Stuck, you and I know more memories are made when you're there for live NFL action, and when you need tickets, Ticketmaster has got you covered as the official marketplace of the NFL. Ticketmaster gives you more ways to find your perfect seat. Their interactive seat map gives you 360-degree previews of your section to make sure that you have the best view of all of those pivotal plays. And if your plans change, Ticketmaster gives you more flexibility to sell or transfer your tickets. Plus, mobile tickets make getting in on game day a breeze, and you can even customize your Ticketmaster app to rep your favorite team's colors. Find tickets today at Ticketmaster.com/NFL. Now it's time for our favorite totals of the week. I'll start us off since you started the six-pack Stuck. I'm going with another under this week. We're going Philly Jets under 41. Jets are 23rd in pace and Philly is 25th. The Jets are also dead last in pace in neutral situations, and the Eagles are pretty slow, especially when they have the lead, which is what we expect to happen here. This Jet offense selling high after they put up a rare 30-point outing going up against that terrible Bronco D. You lost who's been your best offensive lineman in Vera Tucker. He was their highest graded offensive lineman this year at PFF. This Jet defense, I still think, is capable of at least slowing down the Eagles' offense a bit. 13-mile-per-hour winds, chance of rain in MetLife as well. And the Eagles, especially since they found this revelation with DeAndre Swift, they're going to run the ball. And the Jets, they had success last week because they were able to run the ball. Well, Philly is one of the best run defenses in the league. So don't think the Jets will have much success. And I think Philly's just going to eat a lot of time of possession, keep the ball on the ground. And like you said, you don't want to show too much here because you got a primetime game against the Dolphins, who I think you much rather, ball out against. So I think it's just going to be another East Coast ugly, low-scoring, potentially weather-filled game here for the Jets and the Eagles. So under 41 for me.
Yeah, Eagles are like a service academy. They get a lead. They can just in college they can just strangle the game away with these long grinding drives that just bleed the entire clock out, as we saw against the Rams in the second half. Yeah, Eagles can stop the run. Good run defense, should have advantage in the trenches. They can get pressure without blitzing. How the Jets' only offense is give it to Breece Hall and hope he breaks one for 70. Not going to be as easy going against the Eagles as it was against the Broncos last week. And they only got the 23 in that game. Then they got a defensive touchdown in the final seconds. So, yeah, I like this one as well. I'm going to go – I had a really long streak of overs broken last week, but I would bet that one again. Should have got there. So I'm going to go to another over. We're going to go Baltimore, Tennessee. We're going to go overseas to London, over 41. Look, right now where I think – first, well, I should say that I think that the Ravens approached this right. They went Monday, and Harbaugh said, look, we looked at a lot of the data. I don't think there's any right answer, but from what I've seen, teams that go earlier – it doesn't mean they always win, but early on they tend to have more energy. The Bills went late, and McDermott said, look, we didn't have as much energy as the Jags did, who were already there last week. And you hear that more so than not for these teams that travel late. Like Tennessee's going Friday. The Ravens already there. But I think the Ravens come into this game with an underrated offense because they had offensive line injuries. They had injuries at receiver, running back. And they were playing like weather games. So the offense, and they were installing a new scheme. The offense is so close to breaking out. You saw all those drops last week. So I think this offense is ready to explode, and they can do it against a Tennessee defense that's bad in the secondary and has to rely on the defensive front to stop the run and get pressure. Well, guess what? They're two big houses, I should say, up front in Tierre Tart, who was out last week, and the Colts ran wild against them, and Jeffrey Simmons, who played hurt. Both of them didn't practice today. Without them, this defense falls off a cliff. On the other side of the ball, the Ravens defense, I think, comes in overrated. They're still not getting a ton of pressure, which is a concern. They've had some injuries to some of their key edge rushers. And the secondary still has some questions at corner outside of Humphrey. And they've played nothing but bad quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, hurt quarterbacks. So I think their defensive metrics are inflated. So I think this number is too low for where this game will be played. I think that the Titans can get to, 14, 17 at a minimum. And I think the Ravens are due to come out here and get 27-30. This offense is really close, and this is the defense to do it against, especially with a banged-up Tart, who I don't think is going to play, and a banged-up Simmons, who might not play. And if he does, he's going to be hampered, which is why you saw them get absolutely shredded by the Colts last week. So I like this over. I think Ravens' offense is undervalued, defense overvalued. Tennessee's defense is not being downgraded enough for their injuries on the defensive line. So I think it sets up as an early over. And then I'll also throw in, I like the Ravens, lean the Ravens at -4, almost put them in the 6-pack. Ravens money line, pair that with, I'm going to pair that with the Rams. Rams money line against the Cardinals. Cardinals D is so bad. I think the fun is up with Arizona. The gig is up with the fun with Dobbs. And, the offense still has more juice than we thought, but Rams, I think, are winning that game. So I'm parlaying the Ravens with the Rams money line as well. But for the total, give me Ravens Titans over.
Yeah, I think if the Titans can't stop the run, there goes their defense, because that's the one thing I was counting on last week. It's like this Colts team, they need to run, and of course Simmons gets hurt early, and it's crazy because I forgot Taylor was even active. It was Zach Moss running all over him, which is hilarious because they just give Taylor $42 million, and it's the guy that they got for like $1 million and spare parts that's going nuts. So yeah, good job.
Yeah, I said RIP Tennessee backers when Richardson went out, because the Tennessee secondary, they were already giving up the run. Minshew's going to throw it downfield. Minshew has more throws at 20 yards downfield than Richardson does this year, and Minshew was like the second highest rated quarterback last week. Tennessee spent the whole week preparing for Richardson as well, which didn't help. So, I thought that you kind of got screwed there when that happened. But, I like this to go over. I think this number's too low.
All right. Stuck has the Titans-Ravens over 41. I have the Eagles-Jets under 41. Now it's time for our favorite teaser of the week. All right. We're both 4-1 on the year on teasers. Stuck has a lot of great content out. Check, just Google Stucky and teasers, but he goes through his whole process of which numbers he's trying to tease through. So we do 6-point teasers here, as is the standard. 2-teamers. Where are you going?
Yeah, let's go with if you want to ideally tease through 3 and 7, lower the total the better, where points will be at a premium, less variance. And every point matters more. So let's go with the Texans. Tease them up over a touchdown against the Saints. Should be a lower scoring game. I still like what I've seen from Stroud. Offensive line is getting healthier as well. I think they can keep that within one possession at the minimum. And let's pair them with the Commanders from +2.5 to +8.5. Another game with a total of 42.5. Ritter played better last week, but Washington's going to get a lot more pressure on them. They just got to, they're giving up. Their pass success D is fine. Their run D is okay. They're giving up way too many explosive passing plays. But I'm a little more variance in those numbers. I'm not as concerned with that against Atlanta. So I think both of those are positive EV pieces. Let's go with the Commies and the Texans. Washington also extra rest after getting embarrassed. I think you'll get a pretty good effort here.
Yeah, I'll have more in Washington in a bit, but I'm going Houston as well, and then I'll pair it with we'll go Philly here, 7-1. I think with the Jets O-line continuing to get worse and worse, I think Philly wins this game. It might be ugly, probably be lower scoring, but I do think they escape MetLife with a win. So going Philly -1, and then Houston up to 7.5. So to recap, Houston 7.5 for both of us. Stuck is pairing it with the Commanders up to 8.5, and I'm pairing it with the Eagles down to -1. And as a reminder, Action Network Podcast is presented by BetMGM, and you can use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now it's time for an Underdog Moneyline Parlay. All right. So you're 2-3. I'm 1-4 in the year, so you got to pick it up here. Where are you going with your dog for this week?
By the way, I didn't get you talked about the Eagles. I didn't get enough Zach Wilson slander in there. Zach Wilson was the first player in NFL history since the merger, I should say, to have the worst passer rating 2 years in a row. He's currently the second worst this year, ahead of just Daniel Jones. So need you this week, Jones. All right, I'm gonna go with the Patriots. You talked about it earlier, and I think this is it. This is the buy point, the low point. McDaniel will try to give this away. I mean, the Raiders have won 2 games this year against beat-up teams by 1 and 4, and McDaniel tried to give them both games away. So, yeah, I think this is it. The Patriots are going to reset. They basically said we're starting over, which means they're just going to come out here, run, easy throws, and that's what the Raiders defense will give you. The strength of the Raiders defense, taking away pass explosives, doesn't really matter against this New England team. Short week. Great for the Raiders. Great spot for New England. I'm going to trust them one more time. I think this number's inflated after what we saw last week, so let's go with the Pats.
Obviously agree there. And I'll go Washington. You kind of just talked about it with the tees. But everyone, Desmond Ridder hasn't lost at home. What is he? Undefeated at the Falcons at home. Undefeated in college at home.
And high school. 41-0.
Yeah. That's
middle school, too.
He's too bad of a quarterback for that to last too much longer. Now, this is a high variance game. That's why, it is better, I think, as a tease or a money line dog. Like, taking the 2.5 here. I know the Falcons, every time they win, it's by like 1 or 2. So you might, the Falcons might win and you still cover. But ultimately, I think this is the way you want to back Washington. Falcons pretty underwhelming. As what they're in the bottom 20 in DVOA. Their defense hasn't been great. I can't expect Ridder to put up big numbers again. Back-to-back weeks. He's been bad from a clean pocket. Washington. They just got caught sleeping against the Bears. I think they're not great. They're still one of the worst teams in the league, but they're better than what we saw of them last, and that's kind of the theme on this show. So, yeah, buy low on Washington, sell high on Atlanta. Although we like Atlanta long term, but I kind of wish Ridder had a bad game last week so we could get to Heineke before we really start getting screwed over here. But either way, Washington, New England, parlay odds plus 439. So, nice little juicy one there. All right, now it's time for the best of the rest games we have not covered in any other segment, but are still, as they say, meaningful to some. All right, first we got the Colts at the Jaguars. Jags -4, total 45.5. Jags have won 7 straight at home against the Colts, I believe it is. I like the matchup. I'm kind of tempted to bet the Jags here. I think this number has kind of come down. Everyone's loving the Colts. They've been covering as dogs. I get it. But I just see a lot of their success is somewhat unsustainable. I mean, number one, you just keep getting lucky with the Titans one of the top 2 run defenses in the league. 2 of their best run defenders get hurt in the middle of the game. Your backup running back breaks off a big play. Baltimore screws up the last,
this is the ideal
kickoff. They win a game. I mean, I like Jacksonville here, but I don't know. Talk to me. And Trevor Lawrence has been great against his Gus Bradley defense as well. I think it's completing 80%+ of his passes last year against it. So I kind of like Jacksonville, but I don't know. Talk to me. What do you think of this one?
For Lawrence, and he didn't even have Ridley in the past. prior to this season. This is just a tricky spot. Just like we don't have a lot of data here. Like they were in London for 2 weeks off of a big win. Colts with revenge in the divisional game from earlier in the season. And Minshew's an upgrade to me over Richardson. I mean, I told you he's actually going downfield, which is where you have to attack this Jacksonville team. And even though he's the one throwing downfield and Richardson isn't, Richardson an 18.5% bad throw percentage, Minshew 12. So he's throwing it more downfield and having fewer bad throws. And that's where you need to attack this Jaguars team because you're not going to be able to run on them.
Yeah, that's big, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have 5-man fronts on first down. I mean, they're just by scheme, you're not really going to be able to run on Jacksonville. One of the best run defenses in the NFL this year, and they were really good last year. So it's going to be up to Minshew revenge game here. Numbers come down a bit too much, so I lean Jags, but tricky spot, so pass.
Yeah, and like Lawrence is a favorite, hasn't been great, still has a losing record against the spread. So yeah, I'm thinking about it just because this number. I think it should be closer to 5.5. But let's go to the next one. Arizona at the Rams. Rams -7, total 48.5. Remember on one of the preseason pods we kind of talked about what is this total going to be, and it is pretty high. But the Rams, I mean, they look a lot better than we thought. The Cardinals offense is better too. Usually might be a spot I would consider the Cardinals, but it's number one. James Conner's on IR, and Demercado has been great in the pass game, but his rush success rate is about 35% in a small sample. That's Conner was around 50%, so it could be they might not be able to run the ball. Now you're just trying to out pass Stafford, Kupp, and Nakua against. When you have one of the worst pass defenses in the league, if you're the Cardinals, so they could cover here. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't really see any value. I'd lean Cardinals, but I just don't like the matchup anymore, given the injuries. What do you think?
No, I mean teams haven't had much success the week after against the spread. The week after playing the Eagles, really physical game since 2020. They're 20-35 against the spread. Could be something there, but yeah, I mean I'm gonna money line the Rams with the Ravens, as I said earlier. Arizona's defense is dreadful. I mean, they're one of 4 teams that are getting pressure under 15% of the time. So they're not going to get pressure on Stafford. And they're 28th in EPA per play, 32nd, dead last in opponent success rate. The only team that's allowing above 50% in success rate. Their secondary is so bad that they have to play so far off so they don't get burnt. And now you're playing this Rams receiving core, which is like, I mean, it's with Nakua, Atwell's been great, and now Kupp back, and Kupp it just hit the ground running last week. Stafford's not going to be pressured, and those receivers on the outside. How's Arizona going to get stops? I just don't see it. And then with Conner on IR, Dobbs will make a couple of mistakes. I actually lean the Rams, but at 7, it's a pass. But I'm going to money line him with the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say I lean Cards is because, I mean, we're 5 games into the year. The Rams are better than we thought they were, but it's still early, and -7 in a divisional game this early can't get there. But if you're trying to money line, I think that's a better way to go about it. And didn't McVay inexplicably struggle against Kingsbury? Wasn't that
he owned the Cardinals.
Thing that used to happen? Like the Rams would
he
used to always beat Kingsbury.
McVay
right?
owned the Cardinals.
I keep forgetting now.
McVay owned the Cardinals. Now I don't know how much of it still applies because it's a completely different staff, and obviously it's an upgraded staff. But the circle of life in the NFC West, as I refer to it, is the Rams own the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
Who own the 49ers, who own the Rams, who also own the Seahawks, who own the 49ers.
Yes.
That is the circle of life in the NFC West, if you can keep up. But it might not. There's a different schemes now, but I just don't see this Cardinals team getting any stops.
Yeah, might be. I mean, for people that like overs, it's not a bad one to play. Okay. And the game everyone's kind of all worked up about is this Niners-Browns game. The spread is Niners by 6.5 on the road. The total's 37.5. It's gonna be weather. Looks like we're probably not expecting Deshaun Watson. I don't know what's going on there. This Browns season, I mean, it looks so promising with this defense, and now, I mean, I don't know. I really just bad vibes, getting bad vibes from is this Watson's decision? Is this the team's decision? Now you don't got Chubb. So I mean, this defense is great, but the Niners just put up 42 on the Cowboys. So I don't know. What are you thinking here?
This was going to be a hammer for me. This was going to be my number one pick. It's this spot. Yeah, I mean, the Browns D, the Cowboys didn't get pressure. You have to get pressure on Purdy. Browns D can get pressure. They have a better secondary than the Cowboys. Browns lead the NFL in pressure rate. You're playing at home in weather. This is going to be tough for Purdy. Not as easy as it's been. But now, there's no Chubb. There's offensive line injuries. Njoku's also hurt. And you might get P.J. Walker. He's not even on the fifth. He's going to start if Watson can't go. And reading the tea leaves, Watson's not going to go. So, this was such a good spot. Off of a bye after getting embarrassed. And, I mean, I have trends for days that speak to this buy low, sell high. Off of a team that just blew out one of their biggest rivals in the conference on a primetime game in a hype home spot. Now going, across the country in weather where it's going to just be miserable in Cleveland. I don't know how this game, this should go under, but I'd worry about Browns turnovers. This line's going to go up when Watson gets announced out. So, I mean, playing the 49ers now at like -6.5 is not a bad idea. Because you could always buy back, but if Watson's out, then this thing goes to 7.5 at least. And then you have a middle if you want to buy out. But, yeah, I have so many trends, too, that just speak to the buy low, sell high nature of this spot. But, for example, home dogs versus undefeated straight up teams are 61, 38-1 against the spread over the last 10 years. 88, 53-2 against the spread since 2010. I have about 20 of those things. But it's P.J. Walker, who was the only quarterback worse than Zach Wilson last year. Over the past 2 years, I should say, if you look at some advanced metrics. No Chubb, offensive line injuries. You have Bosa going against Wills. How are the Browns going to score? So the defense is going to play up here. If they don't turn it over, this game could be 13-10. But if they turn it over, they could lose by 21. So, yeah, it's a great spot for the Browns, but I need more to consider P.J. Walker.
And it's because if Deshaun does play, I mean, this dude, what has he not thrown in 3 weeks? He's thrown 3 passes or something?
And there'll be wind. So, what are you going to get from him?
And that running game, I mean, honestly, it's not great without Chubb. I mean, I know Ford had a big run against Pittsburgh, which not a great run D, but it would be this looked a lot better. What was it, 3 weeks ago? About 4 weeks ago, this game. Yeah, I would have had this circled. Now, yeah, it's probably, if anything, tease the Niners down. Maybe they'll probably get out of here with a win, whether it's ugly or not, if Watson doesn't play. But yeah, shame, man. Okay, let's wrap it up with Survivor.
I'm riding your coattail, so whatever you say, I'll agree with.
So I mentioned that of the 2 big spots, I like the Carolina Panthers more. And I also, on the show, went with Miami last week. So, got to go Buffalo here. Looking at Buffalo's schedule coming up, not a ton of spots I really want. And coming off a loss, I think you'll get a decent enough effort to win the game. I do agree. You could see a little bit closer score maybe than we expect, but I like Buffalo a lot more now that they, kind of got focused, have to give their best effort. I could see the Rams. You mentioned the Rams, but divisional game, not what I like to do if I can help it, is play, divisional favorites. And who else we got? That's the Chiefs we already used in week 3. Another divisional game Thursday night where things happen. So yeah, Bills, I think not a great week, but yeah, Bills. And if you don't have the Bills, I'd go the Dolphins because that was a team that I looked at their schedule and not too many more after this. Want to buy them while they're healthy enough. So yeah, Bills for me.
By the way, one final question with this 49ers team looking like a juggernaut. Maybe they're just like Purdy's the new Brady, and he's on the come up, and you just don't fade them.
Yeah.
But if you were to guess when you would fade, and obviously it's going to depend on numbers and what happens in the future, but if you had to guess when you would maybe fade the 49ers next. So at the Browns this week, no. Which sucks is they're at the Vikings next, and there's no Jefferson, which really sucks.
Cincinnati.
Then home against the Bengals.
That's where you fade them. That's where you fade them. You just rely on Burrow and Chase and that offense to do what they do every week, which is cover the spread, and just find a way. Like, and what would the line be? Probably like Niners minus 4.5 or something like that. 5. You're going to get over a field goal if you got over a field goal against Dallas.
Yeah, you could even get like 5 or 6 depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks.
I'm going to say Cincinnati, and if because you don't want to. I mean, they're at Jacksonville, but they're coming out of a bye. I don't really want to give Kyle Shanahan like extra time. Maybe at Seattle week 12 if that doesn't work. At Philly week 13, those two stand out. But in the immediate future, I would go Cincinnati. What about you?
Yeah, San Fran revenge though at Philly.
True. But still,
they're going to be ready for that. They're going to be ready for that game.
I think it's got to be Cincinnati. The more I look at it.
Yes, and then week 16, home against the Ravens.
Yep.
Ravens is a dog.
One of those two. Yep. One of those two AFC North teams that do
Both.
nothing but cover is do. Yep. Probably. But I would like. All right. You've obviously been watching football a long time, right? One question before we got here. So. Obviously, remember the Patriots doing their thing in 2007, going undefeated. Where does this Niner team rank for you out of all the football you've watched in terms of likelihood to go undefeated? Because they're pretty high for me. Like I can't really rattle off many other teams. Like those Steelers a few years ago, they were frauds, like 11-0. But like where does this Niner team rank for you early on in terms of that?
They're up there. It's still super early. I mean, that's what people have to remember. Like, it's still, but I mean, if you go back, Purdy's won like 12 games in a row that he started and finished. So like that's you have to consider last year too. The only game they lost is when they were down to McCaffrey chucking up balls. So like this is a team that's already won 12 games in a row. But I think that's what makes it like tougher. They're going to get picked off eventually, and they don't have an easy schedule the rest of the way. And you have all your division games. You have the Ravens and Bengals. You're at the Eagles, but for the first time in a while, because it's just I have them now, the number one power rated team, and like you knew that the Chiefs, those really dominant Chiefs teams, Mahomes, you just knew that like they were going to lose like a shootout, and their defense wasn't complimentary. But the 49ers also have a really good defense. So, yeah, they're, for the first time in a while, they're probably top of the class.
Yeah, like I'm thinking the same thing because I really couldn't, name a team that not that it's likely, but just a team that I've even really thought about it. And I definitely have thought about it with this team, especially, if they Philly, Cincy, and Baltimore, those are the 3 biggest tests, and Cleveland would have been, but you got through Dallas already, so that at least that's one down. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for the Week 6 Action Network Pod presented by BetMGM. You can hear more of myself and my guy Sean Kerner this week talking fantasy and DFS on the Fantasy Flex podcast, and also, we have our Action Network Discord server, link in the description, as I mentioned earlier, and Stuck will be talking college football over on Big Bets on Campus on Friday morning, and you can find Stuck on X at Stucky2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.